Hello, students, and welcome back and welcome to our next presentation. This is going to be focused on the development of elite performers in sport. I will share with you this presentation here, and you should also be able to get it in the YouTube link below. Okay, before we start, let's have a look at what we did in our last broadcast, where we looked at physical activity and sport and physical education. And you were looking at the comparisons, the similarities and the differences between each concept. Okay. Hopefully that's now on your screens. I believe it is. So the definition of physical recreation, if you can remember, was the active part of leisure time when you choose to do physical activity during the time when you are free. The characteristics of that were looking towards more participation and fun, and it's more intrinsic motivation, looking at basically your health benefits rather than financial gain or rewards or trophies. Again, these don't follow strict rules like sport does, and the rules can be flexible depending on who is playing. The benefits of these, you are going to get similar benefits. In fact, all of these benefits are related to sport as well, in the sense that it's going to improve physical skills, health and fitness. We talked about health, about what that is, the definition of health, about it's not just the physical, but it's also the social and mental well-being. So therefore, you're likely to also have benefits related to your confidence, your socialization. It's also, if we're looking at the wider society, it's going to reduce the stress on the NHS, the National Health Service, going to hopefully reduce obesity rates within society, reduce the crime rates. And we looked at that link about having a more positive view of the community that you are in when you're taking part in sport in those areas, and that leads to less crime being committed. It also has a big impact on the economy. As more people take part in sports, and more people get employed in the sector, and more people do purchase the sports equipment which is needed to take part. Look at sport. The characteristics of sport differ from physical recreation. It starts to get a lot more competitive. It's now well organized, professional. It has strict rules. It has set kickoff times, start times, set boundaries, and all of these rules are covered by a national governing body. The participants themselves are likely to have a high win ethic. They take it seriously, and they're going to be highly committed to that particular sport. Because of this commitment level, we are also likely to be able to see a lot higher level of skill, effort and tactics, which all kind of link into a better entertainment spectacle for the people who are viewing it. And we do have extrinsic rewards that are given to the winners of these events. And especially at the professional level, the elite level, we are talking about very handsome rewards financially. The benefits to the individual, obviously you're going to get the benefits, like I mentioned, from physical recreation, but you're also going to experience through time develop morals and etiquette and sportsmanship, although that's kind of debatable, but that is the idea, is that as people play sports, they're going to learn new values and morals. There's also an increased appreciation for these performances. So we think about benefits to society. You are going to get more role models to society, and hopefully, therefore, increase participation level. And you're definitely going to increase the entertainment for the spectators. Moving on to physical education, if we can remember characteristics of physical education, uh, it is compulsory for all students to take part in physical education within an educational establishment, so a school. And these are formally taught by teachers. And sport and physical education in the UK, it follows the national curriculum for England, and they are likely to be highly structured, highly planned, highly motivated lessons delivered by a professional, or they should be at least. Uh, the benefits of physical education to the individual, in particular to the students, so it's widely regarded and accepted that physical education helps students to have a positive attitude, or well, that's the aim, is to have a positive attitude towards physical activity. So hopefully they can lead a long, uh, healthy lifestyle even when they leave school. It's going to improve the individual's skill level, their coordination, their reaction time, uh, their problem solving ability, hopefully their creativity and their leadership skills as well. As well as also developing their social skills. So you can see how there's a crossover from the physical education benefits with the sport, with the physical recreation. Uh, Also linked to the more wider society, I suppose, is the development of values in regards to fairness, accepting of rules, respect for the opposition, uh, and sport and physical education now can provide students with a qualification, which hopefully gives them a career pathway in the industry. And don't forget that physical education is can be seen as a triangular model. So it does have aspects of recreation, does have aspects of sport, and obviously we have got the education side as well. And don't forget also the concept of outdoor education and how that is linked to PE. Okay, moving on. So this topic, we're looking at development of elite performers in sport. It is quite a big topic area, so I'm going to be splitting this into two presentations, uh, and hopefully we can cover all the content. And by the end of this presentation, you should be confident that you've got all the information that you need to answer the kind of questions you will receive in the exam. Linked to the specification then, the things we're trying to deliver in this presentation, we are going to be identifying the personal, social and cultural factors that may and can influence performance at the elite level and the development of those people. We're also going to be looking at UK sport, national governing bodies and national institutes of sport. Who are they? What do they do? How can they provide support to elite performers, and how can they identify that talent initially? Towards, and especially in the second presentation, we're going to be looking at whole sport plans and what they are, who does them, how long they are, how can these plans link to talent identification and support services. And finally, we're going to be discussing the World Class Performance Programme, what that is, who delivers it, how is it funded, and we're going to be linking that to the Gold Series and talent identification. So as you can see, there's a running theme here about identifying talent for elite performance. So with that in mind, take a little look of these athletes and think about the factors that can influence elite athlete development. Hopefully you know who they are. Okay, hopefully you can start making some links about what might be coming up in this presentation. So the factors that can affect elite athlete development, what kind of things they are. Uh, so I've got a few images here, which hopefully can kind of represent a couple of things which we're going to be talking about. Uh, this is Mr. Mo Farah here, or Sir Mo Farah, as we can call him, and Andy Murray and Jessica Ennis-Hill, all world-class athletes representing Team GB. Got an image here. Hopefully you can see that this is one person standing out from the crowd. So what makes these people different to the average person? What kind of qualities do they have, or you think they may have, which helps them to succeed on the world stage? We've got a family influence here. How will that impact people making it to elite level? Funding for individuals, funding from many different sources, and how can that also influence not only initial participation, talent identification, and also support at the elite level. And this image is representing, in the bottom right hand corner, it is representing physiological components. So what makes people different? How can we identify these elite athletes early? Talent identification is not a new concept. It has been around for many, many years, especially in the developed countries and nations, sporting nations around the world. But there are many issues, and there's still many unresolved issues that occur where we can potentially miss a lot of talents due to many factors which can influence elite performers. And we need to consider these kind of qualities of personal, social, and cultural factors. What kind of influence can that have on performance at elite level? So have a little think about what personal factors do you think you would need to succeed as an elite athlete? Think about the sacrifices these athletes may have to give. What kind of mindset will they need? What kind of personal factors will indicate the success that they've got? Okay, let's take you through a few of these. Hopefully you managed to come up with some of these and thinking about it. So athletes need resilience. There's going to be a lot of pressures, a lot of failures along the way, and they need to show that resilience in their attitude. So even though they are going to get knockbacks, they are going to still continue to try, continue to take risks. They need confidence. I think self-confidence is very important in sport to achieve at the high level. And if you think about these elite athletes, most of them display some high self-confidence, some more than others. People spring to mind like Cristiano Ronaldo, who's got extremely high confidence levels, but he is the elite performer of his generation. So that's probably why he has that confidence. They also need motivation. So they need personal motivation themselves. They need motivation to succeed and to keep performing and to keep training. They need good communication skills. Maybe you missed that off, but they're going to be communicating with a lot of people, a lot of stakeholders. So the people who are funding them, their sponsors, their coaches, and they need to be able to communicate how they feel, how they are performing physically, their reasons for success or failure. They need to be highly committed because they're going to have to give up significant amounts of time away from family and friends, away from food and nutrition, which maybe not be good for them. They'll have to give all of that up from their diet. and they'll have to obviously train heavy workloads, multiple training sessions per day, in order to be able to peak at the elite level. They need the determination to succeed, and that drive are kind of linked to the motivation. They definitely need a high level of fitness and skill level. I think that's pretty obvious. Uh, and they should and would be and would have to be goal orientated. So these the success stories don't usually happen overnight. It's going to be a long process of development, uh, and there's going to be need to have those short-term goals to keep the athletes motivated, as well as long-term goals. For example, winning a medal at the Olympic Games. They're also going to need to be able to take on board constructive criticism to improve. Okay, looking at social and cultural factors then, how do you think these may influence progression, especially if we're talking about the early development? This is linked to our AS studies when we're talking about social and cultural aspects. So have a good think about that. What might be coming up here? Hopefully you've got a few things in mind. So let's take a few looks at them. Okay, you are going to need, without a doubt, in order to make it to the elite level, you're going to need support. You're going to need a support process in place from your friends, from your family, in order to help you to succeed, to keep you motivated, to keep you socialized, to keep you healthy. Uh, you're going to need some kind of financial support. If that's initially, for example, from your family, if you're not earning money to be able to purchase the kit, to pay for coaching sessions, to take you to and from competitions, all of these things cost money. So you're going to need that family support. Hopefully, already you can start to think about how that may exclude a lot of people from society of making it to the elite level. Hopefully, there's equal opportunities available in the sports, but as we've already highlighted in the AS topics, is that's not always the case, and it's not always true. We sometimes have discrimination, overt, covert discrimination, and equal opportunities are not the same, unfortunately, in society. They are getting better, but there are still people who are limited in certain groups. You would need some kind of role models to inspire you in the first place. And for some countries and cultures, sports just not accepted as like a worthwhile career or a pathway to take. And so that sport, the role of sport, needs to be accepted within society that you are living in. Uh, what kind of sports are available in school? This is also very important. Students of the UK are in a very privileged position. We looked at in our last presentation about the school sports games week, and what that offers, and the kind of funding that is offered by the government, and what kind of initiatives are offered to get students involved in sport, and to identify the high performers and celebrate their achievements. Are there all sports accessible in your school? Probably not. Probably you've got limitations about what can be offered depending on location, funding opportunities. So these all have impacts on elite sports and where athletes come from. Are there local clubs available to you to take part in? If you don't live by the sea or by a lake, you're unlikely to be an elite sailor later on in life. These are kind of things which just get overlooked sometimes, and it depends on where you're born, where you're living, about your opportunities that you have to take part in elite sport. What kind of media coverage is given in the country that you live in. Um, I know in the UK, there's a lot of coverage. A high percentage of the media interest is involved in sport, albeit male sport, and also isolated to some popular sports. But there is a lot of media coverage, and which is obviously going to generate interest, hopefully improve participation and funding. And finally, what kind of socio-economic status do you have? And that's kind of linked to my third point down there about financial support from family. What kind of bracket are the people living in financially? So this specification, the AQA specification, we are going to be focusing on three main organisations who help to develop talent for the elite level. They are national governing bodies. We should know about them already. UK Sports, we have discussed in previous topics, and the National Institutes of Sport, who are funded and owned by UK Sport. So let's take a look about UK Sport first. Who are they? What do they do? What are they responsible for? Well, they have quite a lot of roles to play within the whole sport bracket. They oversee sport in the UK, and they are funded by two organisations or two areas. They are responsible for distributing funding from the National Lottery, which generates a lot of income for the sports, arts and culture. They also receive direct exchequer funding. So anything that says exchequer funding is related directly to government funding. So they get money from two places, and they are responsible to distribute that funding to develop elite sport in the UK, high performance sport. They give money to national governing bodies directly, linking to whole sport plans, which we'll talk about later in this presentation. And they also give money to the Olympic associations and the National Institutes of Sport to increase elite sport in the country. They are responsible for delivering what's called the World Class Programme. And again, we will be looking at that in this presentation, in this unit, to understand what the World Class Programme is, what kind of levels there are to this programme, and how it's funded and how it develops elite athletes. They're also responsible for giving athlete personal awards. So this is not a trophy or medal. This is direct funding to support athletes so they can have a lifestyle grant, so they can afford to cover costs of training, accommodation, and transport directly related to training and the ability to be able to train for sport to get to the best level they can. They distribute funding, like I said, to the National Institute of Sport. An example there is that the English Institute of Sport received £59.7 million over 4 years leading up to the Rio Games. So that's just the English Institute of Sport. In the UK, there are 4 institutes of sport: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, which obviously make up the United Kingdom. They also, linked into supporting athletes, they give lifestyle advice, because as you can be aware, being an elite athlete, being a professional, being a role model brings about opportunities, some positive, some negative. So it's making sure that the athletes stay on track and make the right decisions in their life. And finally, they are responsible for world-class standards. One of their programs they run, which we will look at in drugs and sport, is the 100% Me program. So that is an anti-doping campaign. So they are promoting uh, positive sporting ethics. Okay, let's take a little look about. That's enough for me for talking for a second. Let's take a little look about UK sport in more detail.
What makes a world-class organisation successful games after games is that we have consistency of funding, which we currently have, and we employ and engage the best athletes, the best coaches, and the best leaders in the world. If we can do that, we'll continue to succeed on the world stage.
It's our responsibility here at UK Sports to make the right investment decisions in the right athletes and the right sports for the right outcomes. And the right outcomes being medal outcomes on the Olympic and Paralympic stage. They're not easy decisions to take, but all our decisions are informed by an assessment of the medal potential of each and every sport. The great thing about our responsibilities here at UK Sport, which are all focused on success on the world stage, we are uniquely positioned to have a really good insight into where sports are and athletes are on their journey towards medal success. Although we've been incredibly successful to date, we are very aware that the sports can be even better in terms of how they operate their world-class programs. And because we can see that they can be better, we believe that, in fact, the outcome in terms of medal success could be even greater in the future. And that is a massive inspiration to all of us here at UK Sport.
What UK Sport means to me is that, and I've been on both sides of the fence because I ran one of the more successful Olympic sports, is we're the glue, we're the cement in the system. The sports, the governing bodies are the bricks, we're the cement that glues it all together.
Okay, I've got one more video for you to watch. Start thinking about when you are watching these videos, what is UK Sport? What are they responsible for? How are they delivering success?
We began to start seeing the benefits of National Lottery coming through in the 2000 games in Sydney. And every games, every major championship for Olympic and non-Olympic sports since then has benefited both individually and collectively from the extraordinary generosity of the British people, who have contributed billions of pounds to British sport, and the work of UK Sport and their performance directors and the world-class programs in shaping those programs and having the high and predictable levels of funding that have made such a huge difference and were so evidently in place for the London Olympic and Paralympic Games. UK Sport's strategic leadership around national governing bodies and the extra funding that has been available to them through the National Lottery has helped professionalise the organisations, the administrations of national governing bodies. It has allowed us to recruit, sometimes from overseas, the best possible world-class coaches. It has allowed us to create within national governing bodies an air of predictability, and that's good, so that they know that the funds are available, they know that they are going to be judged on how they spend those funds, but they also know that no stone is being left unturned in our ability to deliver 2 international championships, the best athletes of their generations, well-trained, well-resourced, and ready to take on the world.
Okay, hopefully what you've taken from those two clips there is that there's a lot of funding that goes into UK sport and into their programs, and without that funding, we would not be able to produce the elite athletes that we have seen. Message from the gentleman before said that they could be seen as the glue, the cement and the bricks to help the athletes to take away the pressures and of financial pressures and put in place support networks in order to be able to develop their talents further. There's no stone left unturned, which was a comment there. Everything is thought about. Okay, so let's take a look at the National Institutes of Sport. In particular, we're going to be looking at the English Institute of Sport. There are 4 institutes of sport around the country, around the UK, and their sole job is they are responsible for delivering high-class, world-class, we can say, world-class support services. Now, whether that's training, facilities that they're training in, medical and nutritional advice that they are giving, but biomechanical analysis, if we link it to technology and sport, how they can improve their technique and how they can develop further. So, like we said, there's 4 institutes of sport in the UK: English, Scottish, the Sports Institute of Northern Ireland, and the Welsh Institute of Sport. And all of them, they are trying to help athletes win medals on the world stage. They're looking at the best of the best. They're trying to win medals. That is how they are judged, and that is how decisions on funding are made. So if you don't win medals, then funding will be pulled. Here's a good video to just demonstrate what the English Institute in Sport does. Start thinking about the support services they are offering. Okay, so hopefully you've also taken from that video is that there's a lot that goes into developing performance at elite level. I think about all the services that they offer, how much funding they need to give to employ that many staff. It's a significant amount of investment in sport. Okay, so the English Institute of Sport, they say they are the team behind the team. So they are trying to work together to make the best possible athletes, to try to bring about the best, to bring out their potential that they have, to so they can perform on the world stage. And we're talking here about the Olympic Games in particular is the best example you can give. Any world-class event around the world that's going to be basically multiple nations taking part, that is where they're aiming for. So English Institute of Sport, their vision itself is to be the leading provider of performance impacting sports science and medicine in the world. So trying to get the best out of our athletes. They are owned wholly by the UK Sports, which in turn obviously gets funding from the government and the National Lottery. So why are they giving this money? Why are they giving this funding? Because it's all feeding into the aims of UK sport. It's all feeding into the aims and vision of the government themselves. They see it as a positive outcome to have sport, especially elite sport, and especially the nation doing well on the elite stage around the world. UK Sport, the English Institute of Sport, they give a nationwide network of world-class support services aimed at developing the talent of athletes. The main focus is to win medals. That's the main focus, which will dictate how much funding they will get in future years. So they must win medals on the world stage. They also offer and work in collaboration with national governing bodies. They offer services to them and they can get funding back through offering those kind of services. To give an example, the English Institute of Sport gave nearly 1 million hours to over 1,100 athletes on the way to Rio Games. So it's a significant amount of investment of time and finances. Okay, we've got a little task for you guys to do. There are 8 world-class performance centres in England. I'd like you to take a look at 1 or 2 of these. Obviously, you can research the rest in your own time, but take a look at 1 or 2 of these now and see what they're responsible for. Because a lot of these centres, they're sport-specific. So they offer, for example, I'll give you the first one, Manchester. Manchester High Performance Centre is linked very much to cycling. So that is the home of cycling in England. So have a look at the other areas of world-class performances. I'll give you 10 minutes to look at this. And obviously, if you're on catch-up, you can also pause and carry on. Okay, I'm going to bring you back in actually, and you can obviously continue with your research after this presentation is finished. But just remember that the certain centres and certain areas are responsible for sport specifics. So that includes Manchester for cycling, Sheffield for boxing, for example. Just two examples. This is what Sheffield looks like, the English Institute of Sport. So this is a whole centre dedicated to sport at elite level, but it does open its doors to the public as well, because the public are obviously a good source of funding to make sure that this can still be financially viable option for elite sport. But you can look at the fantastic facilities that are available to the athletes in Sheffield.
Sport England lottery-funded initiative to provide world-class sport facilities, EIS Sheffield is one of the country's most impressive indoor sports training venues, boasting state-of-the-art facilities that are available for the general public and grassroots through to elite athletes and Olympic champions.
Look at this, amazing.
With 300,000 visitors, 75,000 attendances and 30,000 school children visiting the venue each year, EIS Sheffield is the largest multi-sport English Institute of Sport in the country. With 90% community usage against 10% elite athletes, EISS is a community sporting venue open to everyone, and we have the expertise and facilities to get you into your favourite sport. Try something new, improve existing skills, or get fit and active. Home to a range of martial arts from Aikido to Karate and Judo to Tang Soo Do, these classes are a great way for the whole family to develop mental and physical well-being, get active, keep fit, and have fun. Throw punches, get fit and learn boxing skills with the popular amateur and women's only boxing sessions that help build self-confidence and discipline and are a great fun fitness workout. The Valley Health and Fitness offers a relaxed and welcoming gym experience with a capped membership to make sure there is no waiting for equipment. It doesn't matter if you're a fitness fanatic or an exercise beginner, our flexible membership at affordable prices gives members access to personal one-on-one coaching, spa and relaxation areas and discounted and free sports activities, all supported by qualified fitness instructors to ensure you will reach your fitness goal, whatever it is. Encourage the same winning attitude to business as world-class athletes with specialist team building days, business conferences, training days and seminars at EIS Sheffield, offering flexibility whatever your business needs. EIS Sheffield hosts hundreds of local, regional, national and international events, including Aviva UK Indoor Championships, European Netball, School Athletics Finals, ABAE Amateur Boxing Finals, Archers Partnership Games, FA Futsal Finals, and the World Snooker Championship qualifiers. Encouraging a positive attitude to sport and fitness amongst children through an energetic range of activities for young people, including coach sporting activities, school sports days, tour packages, birthday parties, and school holiday camps. These are packed with fun, games, sports, and a chance to meet new friends. The home venue of the Sheffield Sharks basketball team, EIS Sheffield is the performance area for 8 of the 26 Olympic sports. These are boxing, judo, table tennis, volleyball, netball, badminton and athletics, along with being the only venue globally with a World Snooker Academy. The redevelopment of the GB Boxing Squad gym was launched in May 2009, with the development squad for 2012 hoping to emulate the success of the 2008 Olympic boxing team, which brought home 1 gold and 2 bronze medals. EIS Sheffield really does have everything under one roof, offering something for everyone: the local community, elite athletes, Olympic champions, businesses, schools, and you.
As you can see, an amazing facility there from the English Institute of Sport Sheffield, and that's similar to what many of the other English institutes of sport would look like, maybe not on that main scale and the size of that, but we're looking at world-class facilities in a range of sports. Okay, we're now going to be briefly looking at the world-class performance program. We'll go into more depth in the next presentation about that. But the English Institute of Sport, they operate this, and one of the areas of the world-class performance program is to identify talent. And there's lots of talent identification programs that happen not just from the English Institute of Sport, but it's through a coordinated partnership between national governing bodies and UK sport. Any identification program is going to follow 4 phases. So initially, phase 1, we're looking at the identification of that talent through testing. There'll be then another round or 2 rounds of performance suitability relating to maybe their personal qualities, their social qualities as well, social factors, and then a decision would be made on whether they would be eligible for funding related to specific sports, depending on what the talent identification program is about. So I did mention at the start of this presentation there were very positives about talent identification, but there's also a lot of problems with identification, which generally sometimes miss opportunities for potential. So the definition of a talent identification program is the testing of physiological and psychological parameters that help determine the likelihood of sporting success. Now, for physiological, you've probably all done fitness tests, so that's one way of testing the physiological needs of a performer. But the more subjective methods are the social and the psychological factors, which need also to be tested. But as I've just mentioned, they are subjective. It's not like we get objective data from the physiological and the anthropometry testing, which basically tests like wingspan, for example, your hand span, length of your forearm, for example, which can be quite easily tested and very, very accurate and valid. So a good testing program, you're going to test lots of people. It's going to be widespread. It's going to be coordinated. You would test physiological, anthropometry, psychological needs as well through questionnaires followed up by interviews. You're going to maybe even controversially look at hereditary factors. So, what's the likelihood that someone may be an elite athlete? Was members of your family elite athletes in the past? May you have similar characteristics of your mother and father, for example, who have both been elite athletes? What kind of social factors? We said at the start of this presentation how social factors are important. Do you have a support network in place? Do you have financial support in place? And obviously the final one, do we account for potential to improve? So people develop at different periods of time. It's not just one set age where we develop, all of the population develops their skills. People are sometimes fast bloomers, late bloomers. So we need to take that into consideration, especially when we look about sport in the UK and around the world generally. It's by age categories, which are generally related to school year. So if you were born in September, for example, you're going to have 9, 10, 11 months on students who are born in end of July, which will affect the physiological differences in performance. So are they taken into account? If you look, is a good study for you. If you look at the world football academies, especially in Europe, you are going to see that, don't quote me, but I believe there's 2/3 of the people on the books of the football academies are born between September and January, and it's very positively skewed towards those months of birth, because they are going to develop first, because they are older than the other students, the other children in their age categories, which generally obviously doesn't take into account for the potential of the younger children. So a few examples of some ID programs that UK sport have led. This is one of them? Discover your power.
If you have individual ambitions, you might be part of a team sport, but you're frustrated by the lack of success you're having there, or the lack of control you have on the end result. If you come on board with the cycling or the skeleton or the canoeing, but particularly with cycling, we have an amazing support network here that will help you realise your ambitions. Cycling as well is an incredibly exciting sport to do. It's fun, it's fast, it's an adrenaline pumping activity to do. If you fancy a new challenge, if you fancy something a bit different, then track cycling, track sprinting in particular, could be the thing for you. The ability to produce high power, to have high speed, have high explosive force. So whatever sport they've come from, it would be beneficial to have that change of pace, that explosive power that you need for sprinting on the bike. Also, they need to have the ability to deal with pressure, to be involved in very intense moments of competition, and to be able to take that weight on their shoulders. You can get athletes from all kinds of sports making that transition. We've seen it already with athletes like Katie Marchant, like Danny Kahn, and Vicky Williamson, who've come from different sports into sprint cycling and succeeded. Competing at Olympic Games is the pinnacle for any athlete. It's the most incredible event to be part of. It's globally recognised. Doesn't matter what sport you do, if you're an Olympic champion, people understand what it takes to be the best. And to experience that and to be part of that and to be able to say that you're an Olympian is a very special thing indeed.
So that was Sir Chris Hoy discussing the latest, or one of the recent talent identification programs led by the English Institute of Sport, hashtag Discover Your Power. And if you didn't get the gist of that, they are looking for people to try out and test for a talent identification program related to cycling. You can occasionally, well, quite often, the English Institute of Sports delivers talent identification programs in a range of sports, sometimes minority sports, depending on the popularity of the population, and they trying to uncover or unearth potential athletes who maybe have been doing other sports, maybe dropped out of sport, maybe got released, for example, from a football academy, and trying to get some of those people to test out in these sports, because it's been proven that people can make transitions from sports, and if they've never done cycling before, for example, if they get involved and they've got the right characteristics, then they potentially could go on to the next stage. These are a few more initiatives which you need these examples for your exam questions, by the way. So you need to have examples of some kind of initiatives, talent identification programs, which English Institute of Sport have delivered. So that what previous one was Discover Your Power. This short clip tells you a few more. One Power to Podium is one. What other ones can you think about? So that clip was obviously an advert for Power to Podium, but it's indicated and showed you all of the other talent identification programs they have delivered. So some of them to mind there: Sporting Giants, Girls for Gold, Tall and Talented, Pitch to Podium, Paralympic Potential, Fighting Chance. So these are all examples of the talent identification programs that the English Institute of Sport have delivered to try to find talent in those areas. So we're coming towards the end of our presentation. So just have a look at this question and think about how you would answer that. Hopefully, you're starting to look at that question and you're starting to think about, as for what role do organisations such as the English Institute of Sport play in the development of elite performers? So what do they actually do? The question is asking, what do they do? What are they responsible for? So you think about the things that we've just talked about all the way through here. So giving funding to people. We've just talked about the fact that they're doing talent identification programs, the support networks that they are giving. If you think about the English Institute of Sport video that we watched, what do they actually deliver? They're giving facilities. They're taking away the barriers away from people so they can take part in sport. Advice on coaching, these kind of support services. Hopefully you would have recognized that question. And that is it for this presentation. So hopefully you've managed to take some of that in. Please do go back through this presentation, pause it, make sure you do the research on the English Institute of Sport's high performance centres around the country. And I'll be back soon with another broadcast. Enjoy your day, and I'll see you soon, hopefully.